Welcome to Building the Billion Dollar Business, the podcast where we dive deep into the strategies, insights, and stories behind the world's most successful financial advisors and introduce content and actionable ideas to fuel your growth. Together, we'll unlock the methods, tactics, and mindset shifts that set the top 1% apart from the rest. I'm Ray Sclafani, and I'll be your host. Okay, picture this. You're sitting in a leadership meeting, reviewing your AI strategy, and someone says, "We just need to automate more tasks." That is the moment, the specific moment I want you to hear the faint piano music from Westworld. You know, that science fiction drama about a hyper-realistic theme park populated by lifelike androids called hosts designed to serve human guests? Because that is how the trouble starts. Everyone thinks they're in control. Everyone thinks they understand the system. Everyone thinks the hosts are just doing what they're programmed to do. And then a few episodes later, someone realizes the system was not the tool. The system was the story everyone had been telling themselves. And that is where many advisory firm leaders are with AI right now. They think the question is, what tools should we buy? That's the obvious question. It may also be the wrong question. And here's why this matters right now. The purpose of today's short episode is to challenge how you are thinking about AI, because that is where the leverage is, not in the tools, in the frame of how AI shapes the future of advice. You know, recently I had a conversation with Rob Nelson, the CEO and founder of North Rock Partners. We were having a discussion and I was interviewing him on Barron's Advisor, The Way Forward podcast, which I'd encourage you to listen to. We'll drop a link in the show notes of this episode. And Rob and I got to something pretty quick that I think is worth repeating. He said, AI, Ray, is not a side conversation. It is colliding with everything else leaders are already dealing with right now. And he's right. Talent, succession, capacity constraints, margin pressures, client expectations, enterprise value, and organic growth. So when leaders say we need an AI strategy, what most often mean is we need to figure out what tools to implement, well, what tools we need to buy. But that doesn't define the real problem, or as I see it, the real opportunity. You see, the real question is, what kind of firm are we building in a world where intelligence is no longer scarce? This is where Nassim Taleb comes in, and he can help sharpen our thinking. You probably know him as the former options trader and one of the leading thinkers on risk, uncertainty, and why we are consistently misreading how the world works. He's the author of many popular books you're familiar with. The Black Swan, published in 2007, Anti-Fragile, published in 2012, among many other books. But these two books, Taleb forces readers to confront something uncomfortable. He says, we're drawn to obvious answers. We look for clean solutions that fit the way we already think. And then when something works or fails, we explain it as if we were predicting it all along. In a stable environment, that's pretty manageable. But in a rapidly changing environment, it's a pretty dangerous way to think. Because the obvious move right now is to take your existing model and then layer AI on top of it. Make the advisor faster, make the team more efficient, clean up workflows. Well, all that's fine, and you're going to do that anyway, but it assumes the model itself is right. Taleb would challenge that. He would ask, what if the problem you are solving is not the real problem? And what if the system you have built is more fragile than you think? So let's talk for a minute about the future of advice, because that is where the conversation needs to go. And that's what Rob Nelson and I were talking about. Advice is not going away. Let's be clear. The human relationship in our lifetime is probably not going away. If anything, it becomes more important. I don't see a world where we're headed to Westworld. But the way advice is delivered will change. Clients are going to interact with a mix of humans, AI agents, digital interfaces that all look and feel like real conversations. Call them avatars, call them assistants, call them whatever you want. The point is, access to insight becomes instant. Modeling becomes real time. Answers come faster than they ever have, and that shifts expectations. Clients will not wait a week for analysis that can be generated in seconds. They will not tolerate fragmented answers when systems can connect the dots, and they will not separate advice from experience. So where does that leave the advisor? It's an important role, but a different one. Less time gathering data, less time producing output, more time helping clients interpret, decide, and act. More time making better decisions by asking better questions, and more time navigating complexity when it really matters. The advisor becomes the translator of intelligence into judgment. Now step back and look at your current firm. You probably say, well, we know our clients. But if we're being really honest, what you have is only partial knowledge. Some of it lives in your CRM system. Some of it sits in meeting notes. A lot of it lives in the heads of your best people. That's not a system. That is dependency. And dependency is fragile. Now, imagine something different. A firm where what you know about clients is captured, connected, and continuously improving. Where patterns show up across the client base. Where risks are identified earlier. Where opportunities are surfaced consistently. Where every team member has access to better insight, not just the lead advisor. That is where AI becomes meaningful, not as a shortcut, but as a way to elevate how the firm thinks. This is where most leadership teams hesitate because it requires a shift. You're no longer asking, how do we use AI? You're asking, where are we making decisions today that would change if we had better insight? That question forces a different type of conversation. It moves you away from tools and into design. What should the service model really look like? How should the team operate? Where is the business overly reliant on one person or a few people? Where are you solving problems that no longer matter? And where are you missing problems that do? So when you go back to the leadership meeting and someone says, well, we just need to automate more tasks, you can hear that Westworld music yet again. Not because they're wrong, because the conversation's incomplete. Automation is the entry point. Intelligence is the outcome, and redesign is the work. Let me leave you with 3 questions to sit with as a leadership team. In each episode, I always include a few coaching questions as reflection questions for your team. First, as AI, agents, and digital interfaces become part of how advice is delivered, how do you redefine the role your firm plays in the lives of your clients? Second, if you were building your firm today from scratch with access to intelligent systems, what would you design differently about your client experience and your team structure? And third, where in your business are you still relying on instinct or habit, and what becomes possible when those decisions are informed by better data and better pattern recognition? Those are not easy questions, but that's the point, because the firms that answer them well are not just going to adopt AI, they're going to build something fundamentally better. Please share this episode with someone you know needs to hear it. Well, thanks for tuning in, and that's a wrap. Until next time, this is Ray Sclafani. Keep building, growing, and striving for greatness. Together, we'll redefine what's possible in the world of wealth management. Be sure to check back for our latest episode and article.